This is the Less Insurance Dependence podcast show with my good friend Gary Takas and myself, Naren Arulraja.
We appreciate your listenership, your time, and most of all, we appreciate your intention to reduce insurance dependence in your practice. Our goal is to provide information that will help you successfully reduce insurance dependence and convert your practice into a thriving and profitable dental practice that provides you with personal, professional, and financial satisfaction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Less Insurance Dependence podcast, the official podcast of the Reducing Insurance Dependence Academy, www.rid.academy. Membership to the Academy is a gift from Gary and I in appreciation for your listenership. Visit rid.academy and don't forget to register. By registering, you will have access to all of our resources and a free pass to all of our events, including our annual summit. I am Naren, your co-host. Today's podcast is titled, The Fee That Patients Are Most Sensitive to When You Resign from Their PPO Plan. Before we jump into today's episode, I have a quick announcement to make. We have an event coming up on the 9th of April at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And the topic we'll be covering is building strong patient relationships in dentistry. Please visit thrivingdentist.com/events to learn more about this. Building strong patient relationships in dentistry. It's on April 9th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. That's the link, thrivingdentist.com/events. Gary, let's jump into today's topic, the fee that patients are most sensitive to when you resign from their PPO plan. I think I know the answer, but I don't want to give it away. I think this is an important question because, having done this for so long, those who don't consider this question sometimes can shoot themselves in the foot.
Well, we're really going to get in the weeds today, Naren, because this is not one of those view from 30,000 feet episodes. This is in the weeds,
Right.
And this is a very important detail because the answer may surprise you. So the fee that patients are most sensitive to is the adult hygiene appointment fee once you're out of network, and that may be a little surprising to you because that fee in the scheme of overall fees in dentistry is not that great. It's not a huge fee,
Right.
But it's the one they're most sensitive to because think about it. When you were in network with their PPO plan, what was their copayment on that fee?
Zero.
It was their quote free cleaning. Some patients even sell that to you, which kind of is disturbing. I'm here for my free cleaning, but that's their view. It's a free cleaning. And then when you go out of network, they will most likely have a copayment for that fee. So the contrast between what used to be free is something now they have to pay for is what can be very upsetting to patients and can cause some patients to leave. Ironically, some of you might have been thinking, well, would a crown, be a fee, be the one they're most sensitive to because that's a larger amount? But we could plug any other fee in there, a crown fee, a fee for an implant, a fee for fillings, or whatever. We could put high value, sir, a fee to have, restorative dentistry done. And the reason why they're not sensitive to those fees is that they don't have those services done very often. How often does a patient get a crown? Naren, when was the last time you got a crown?
I can't even remember, Gary. I think it was probably like a few years ago.
Yeah, my point. Most people don't have much frequency in the other fees. And it's almost like whatever you say your crown fee is, they're going to say, oh, that's expensive. We have a client in Southern Georgia, and we were having this conversation the other day, and I made that comment, whatever your crown fee is, they're going to say it's expensive. And my client said, I had an elderly male patient, quite elderly. He said, yeah, I remember back in the day when I got a crown, I traded 2 chickens. The doctor just laughed and the patient laughed. I traded 2 chickens for the crowns. That was the patient reference. And he just laughed. And then the the patient said, well, I imagine it's going to be more than 2 chickens now. Well, our client has a great sense of humor. Naren, have you paid attention to the price of eggs lately?
Uh, I think it's my wife does the shoppings, but I've heard on the news it's like $6 a
Eggs
dozen
are
or something.
outrageously expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
More, many times than they used to be. So my client, so the patient said, I guess it'd be more than a couple of chickens. He said, we might be able to make a deal with some eggs. And they both laughed. It was just a humorous exchange.
Yeah.
But, the point being that, patients don't really pay attention to the other fees. They pay attention to their hygiene appointment fee. And here's what we found out. Unfortunately, there's not a generic, I cannot give you a generic answer to say what is the copayment going to be. First of all, it depends on their PPO plan. And furthermore, it depends on the group policy within the PPO plan. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think I
Not the
remember a
same.
case where there were some people at a very large tech company in Silicon Valley, and they all were part of a group plan with a particular insurance company, and the copayment was pretty high, like $150 or 170.
$240.
Yeah, $240. So,
So here's what we see.
mhm,
And this is why we wanted to get in the weeds with you. And let's take Delta, for example, because it's likely that Delta is on your radar screen if you're serious about going out of network, because they're usually the largest. So let's talk about Delta. And again, we cannot say, well, the copayment for an adult hygiene appointment is going to be this with your Delta patients, because it all depends on the Delta group policy number.
mhm,
And here's what we've seen from one extreme to the other. On one extreme, and I'm going to emphasize this is an absolute outlier, there could be no copayment when you go out of network. None. And then
right,
on the other end of the extreme, we've seen as high as $240 for a
right,
copayment for the hygiene appointment. Big range, 0 to 240. On the zero side, very unusual. It's entirely possible that in your practice you wouldn't see any of those, but it is possible you could. And that would simply mean that the employer, whoever bought the policy, was willing to pay higher premiums to get a better plan. And that's what happened. It's more likely to be a private employer than a municipal employer. Likely not to be a school district, police department, fire department, state employee, city employee, federal
right.
employee. Much more likely to be a private employer where maybe they feel there's more pressure to attract and keep the best, the best workers. But I will emphasize that's unusual. Well, it's great news.
And the other reason might be they might offer significant discounts for these large employers with 100,000 employees, and they'll say, well, we'll do it, but here are the conditions. They can only go to these doctors, and if they go outside of these doctors, then they're going to pay a huge,
Well, it'd be a dentist. They have to a dentist within the network. Any dentist
exactly, any within the network. But if they're not within the network, then they have to pay huge fees. And Google or the city which has 50,000 employees might say, okay, fine, I'll take that, because I would rather get the millions of dollars in savings, for that restriction versus small employees. They can't give them such a good deal that they would give these big guys. So they'll say, well, our standard plan that applies to everybody else applies to you, and therefore the copay might not be that much of a different.
So there's three so that outlier, the outlier of no copayment, you may not even encounter that. The next level up would be what I would categorize under a relatively low copayment. And relative is just that, it's relative. What is expensive to someone might not be expensive to someone else, so we have to factor that in. But what I'm categorizing as a relatively low copayment would be anything less than $50, less than 50. So we see 22, 26, 38, 44, up to 50. And I'm not saying a patient wouldn't leave you for a $50 copayment, or plug in whatever number I put in that lower category. Could a patient leave because of $22 copayment? Could that happen?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
They could, but usually they
we've
don't.
seen
Right?
many patients leave in our coaching work for a $22 copayment. But now let's take it further. The next level would be between 50 and 100. We see some there. And that's where it's starting to get a little bit, dicey for some patients.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the extreme would be up to 240. That's the highest we've ever seen. And I think we could all agree, let's take a $22 copayment versus a $240 copayment. We've got, it's a radical difference for someone, for sure.
Right.
And even in the offices that we have that have those plans that have the $240 copayment, they've lost patients and they've lost more, but they still there's still many patients that chose to stay. But it's important to navigate this. And what we're in our coaching work, one of the things we do is we help our offices figure out what the copayment's going to be with their group policy numbers. Because when a patient from this policy asks, what's my copayment be, we want to give them an accurate answer. And you know, I don't know is not a good answer. Would you agree with that, Naren? Patient says, how much is it going to cost me now?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we could throw mud at Delta. I don't know. Delta's being difficult. They're not telling us, but that still isn't a good answer.
Right.
We want to be able to tell them, you know, what it is. And so there are some ways, there's multiple ways that we can get that answer. And one of the options is we can make their next appointment. We can say, Delta's been difficult with us. We're going to get there. And right now, I don't know. But we're going to get that information for you. And we'll let you know before your next hygiene appointment. What I suggest you do, so I'll speak to you, Naren, as you're a patient. Naren, what I'd suggest you do, let's see, at the time we're recording this, it's mid-February. Let's make your next hygiene appointment. That would be mid-July. Let's make it. And between now, that way you'll have an appointment. You'll be in the system. You'll have an appointment. And then between now and then, we'll find out. And we'll let you know so there wouldn't be any surprises.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's a workaround that we can, and then it does create a bit of a system on your part to have to follow up with those patients. You can follow up in the confirmation process, and maybe you want to reach out a month or so ahead of their appointment. So if they do fall out, you've got time to fill it. And that's worked out really well. In other cases, we've been able to find out and give people that answer. And if it is the higher number, if it is, you know, $240, and one of the other ways we can find out what it is once we're out of network, we can start collecting EOBs from the insurance company. And we can do predeterminations on each one of the group policy numbers. We do pre-Ds. I normally don't like to do predeterminations because it's just a delay tactic on the part of the insurance company to delay payment. But we could do predeterminations to give us factual information that we can communicate with our patients. So once you're out of network, you can get that. And that's where my recommendation of make their next hygiene appointment, do predeterminations ahead of time, and then be able to communicate accurately with them. And when we've done this, and it's been the high amount, the $240, remember, many patients are going to stay. Some are going to leave. But we could say, you know, unfortunately, Naren, your employer has bought a very weak dental insurance policy, and your copayment's going to be $240. However, many of our patients have told us that they appreciate the way we take care of them. They appreciate the quality of care they receive and the quality of the patient experience, that they choose to stay in our practice. And it's our fondest hope that you make that same decision as well. So we're, you know, using a little bit of the herd mentality, and you know,
Yeah.
It's true. Many patients have chosen to continue to stay here because they appreciate the quality of the care, the quality of the experience, the way we work hard to make every visit a positive experience, and they choose to stay in our practice. And we would hope the same for you. So this is a detailed topic that I think was worth diving into, because that's the question that you're going to get when you go out of network. How much more am I going to have to pay? And what they're talking about specifically is their next hygiene appointment. And we can navigate that. We found, you know, with practices in every state, you can navigate that. Sometimes we have better news than others. Good news: the copayment for your hygiene plan isn't any different than it was before. I mean, that's the outlier effect, you know, when that comes into play. But you know, that's an exception for sure. But this will help you kind of understand what you're up against rather than finding out about it after the fact. You want to be fully prepared. You know, it's kind of like we don't, you know, if you're in an area of the country that is storms affected, you don't hope a storm's coming. You hope you can avoid it, but you want to prepare for it if it happens. And the storm here is a very high copayment, so we want to prepare for it. And that might also point to a marketing solution that if our projections and your projections are you're going to lose more patients because more of your patients have the higher copayment, then ramp up your marketing before them and replace them with people choosing you for reasons other than you take their insurance. Does that make sense, Naren?
Yes.
Do
I
that
think,
ahead of time.
yeah, I mean, because if you are getting new patients from outside of PPO plans, you don't need to worry, right? Because you're going to get full fee paying patients. And if you're losing 10, but you're getting 20, then you're always going to be in a net positive situation.
You're
But like you
prepared.
said,
You've replaced them before you've left the network. And the other one too, and I know Naren Equa does this for our clients is help the office find patients that don't have insurance.
right.
Help them find it, because then you don't get this question. Then all this question is mumbo jumbo because they don't have insurance, and the universe of people that don't have insurance is larger. It's growing, and let's go find them. One of the reasons it's growing, Naren, is the universe of people that don't have insurance. It's kind of a post-COVID phenomenon. More and more people are working in freelance type jobs in the gig economy. They're freelancing. And as a result, they might have a number of different companies they work for, but none of them provide them dental insurance. And so as the freelance gig economy grows, it's a growing universe of people that don't have insurance. Let's go find them. So all this has to do with your preparation. Sadly, Naren, I had an experience yesterday that I'll share with our listeners. It was a dentist from the Pacific Northwest who went out of network. He'd been a longtime listener of the podcast, the Less Insurance Dependence podcast, and he went out of network last June. And in his state, Delta is huge. WDS is the Delta processor in the state of Washington, and he lost a lot of patients, and he was on my schedule to talk about, okay, how do I go back and repair this now? We can help, but I would emphasize that this could have been avoided with the right strategy ahead of time. And it was, I'm very happy to help, and I see a strong opportunity for success here, but had to experience a little bit of pain before we can come in and help change it. You've seen that happen too, Naren.
Yeah.
I've referred some of those clients to Equa, and this is something that I think that old adage that don't try this at home.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody needs help with marketing, the best thing to do is to book what we call a marketing strategy meeting, and it's equa.com/LID for less insurance dependence, ekwa.com/LID. We'll give you a report card and a blueprint on how do you start replacing these patients proactively. And I would also recommend, Gary, they book a coaching meeting in case they want to really think this through and are serious, because I know the return on investment is massive, right? Practices add $200,000-$300,000 to their collections, meaning how much money the doctor gets to take home and put in his bank account.
Well, and their
every
overhead
year.
goes down
Exactly.
as a result of that as well. Yeah, if you'd like to talk to me about it, and again, I'm happy to talk to you if you want to, if you have worked on this but not had the results you wanted. Be happy to talk to you and talk about a strategy moving forward, like I did yesterday with a potential client. But just go to thrivingdentist.com/CSM. That'd be setting up a Zoom meeting with me where we could talk about this and talk about a strategy that makes sense in your practice. Well, Naren, this has been a fun in the weeds conversation. So the answer to the fee that patients are most sensitive to when you resign from their PPO plan is the adult hygiene appointment and what the copayment is going to be once you're out of network. So now you're armed with more information to start to figure that out. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate each and every one of you as a listener to the Less Insurance Dependence podcast. Naren and I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Thanks so much.